Thanks, guys. Yeah, my name is Phil Bohn. I'm the SVP of Sales and Revenue for a company called Mediavine. And Mediavine is an ad management and tech company. Ad management means that basically we put ads on a whole bunch of websites. So we exclusively represent 8,400 primarily food, parenting, travel blogs. And these existing businesses come to us and expect us to help them monetize their sites. So we have like a threshold, but we put ads on blogs is the cut and dry of it. With that comes 8,400 sites brings about 20 billion monthly impressions, ad impressions, 130 million unique visitors, which makes us like a ComScore top 20 property. So we have size and scale, especially with the female mom demographic. And then I lead the sales team and some other sort of biz dev operations within the org to sort of further the revenue as well as bring in new sites, different partner relationships, and so on. So Brent asked me to kind of focus on either new products or business ideas and the different aspects of what goes into this. And I can start with kind of the story of Mediavine. Prior to my joining, in about 10 years ago, basically it was a direct sold campaign. So I came to you and I'm like, hey, do you want to put some ads on my site? And you're like, sure, cool, here's an IO, sign it. We got 1 million impressions, it'll run over the next 6 months. And that was it. There was a lot of unfilled ad space, a lot of clumsiness that went with that process. And then the next phase of that came some sort of online aspects where you guys could all have like kind of a collective sales house, and I'd work with 5 or 6 partners, and I'd be like, hey, I got my own direct sales, but I also have, I want like outside people to also who are out selling and have different relationships than I do, or different companies or agencies direct, like say, hey, I'll send you, if I have an unfilled impression, I'll send it to you, and if you can fill it, awesome. If not, send it back to me. And then I'll send it to you. And then if not, you send it back to me. So this took probably 3 or 4 seconds. So I don't know if you remember like 10, 12 years ago, sometimes an ad would load, sometimes it would load really late, sometimes it would slow down the page as it loaded. It still does that, but it's gotten faster, I promise. We're still a pain in the ass, I understand. However, as this was happening in my company Mediavine, we started looking at like, all right, what's kind of the next phase of this? Like there's things that are innovating. And the top one that stuck out was this thing called header bidding. And what that did was instead of passing it to multiple people back and forth and trying to get an impression filled, was that it would collectively, all of you would send in a bid at the same time. So you send in a bid of $2, $3, $4, $5, we would take the highest one. And that's how we'd fill that impression. And with that came a whole ecosystem of demand-side partners who would go to advertisers and say, hey, we've got this sort of algorithm of like what the audience you want to bid on, and this is how we do it, and we have relationships with Mediavine. And so as this was happening is kind of when Mediavine started expanding and taking on different clients. And our CEO, who's basically our CTO, was all in on this. Anything that made the internet faster, he was all in on. So he started adopting this and creating it and built his own sort of proprietary wrapper is what we call it, to make sure that we were doing this extremely fast. The faster you do it, the better the viewability, which is what marketers are looking for, right? They want their ads to be seen, as well as other performance metrics of click-through rates and audience matches and all these things. So we kind of built this technology to start, and with that, we became a top player in this field and became the growth. So when I started with the company just 4 years ago this month, we had 2,000 sites, 20 employees. We're at 8,000 sites, and we are going to be like 130 employees by the end of the week. With that comes, we'll probably break 500 million in revenue by the end of this year. 9 years ago, it was 7 million in revenue, so it's grown incrementally. And all this was not quite like innovating anything, but just kind of looking at where the market was going and making sure you could build the best product to accept where the industry was going. Because I like to tell this story. The company I was working at before, similar business. We put ads on blogs. We monetize those. And I was kicking and screaming with these guys, like, listen, this is kind of this next phase. This header bidding piece is this next phase. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, listen, give me an engineer. We'll build this. We'll sort it out. And I'll bring in an extra $2 million by the end of the year. And literally, they looked at me and they're like, we're thinking about it, but I think what we're going to do is hire some more salespeople. They're not doing well these days. So it was literally just kind of being open to like what the change was coming and not being stuck on something like, no, if I just add salespeople, that's what the business needs. That's what growth will bring. Because it didn't, and they ended up cutting sales teams. We run a very lean, efficient team. There's 4 salespeople, including me, and so we just focus on like those high level relationships versus like trying to go after every dollar and have a relationship with every agency, every marketer. We focus on like probably like our top 200 advertisers because the way that we send out bids to everybody and receive bids back. We literally had 100,000 different advertisers on our 8,000 sites last year. Right? Some of these guys are very niche, very small, and are only looking for a very hyper-targeted audience. And so we brought this to them and kind of simplified that. So the next phase of this came about 2 years ago. The header bidding piece is still lived on the website. So we had to wait for the website to load partially to be able to send out the ad request, and then to receive all the ad requests, and then we couldn't load an ad until we received 3 or 4 or 5 bids. Right now we work with 25 different partners, so there's a whole lot of demand, a whole lot of bids that come back for an ad space that are not being filled. So we created a server-to-server integration, which means that it'll live off-site, doesn't live on the page, so the page, as you go to it, will load much faster, which improves all the other things that marketers are looking for, viewability, click-through rates, everything that kind of goes with advertising, right? You want your ads to be seen. And we created this server-to-server integration, and we had to like drag our partners into this. Like, listen, this is how we're going to integrate. We're going to start firing people if you don't do it. And most of them did. A few were kicking and screaming, and we finished up the last few this year. But now we were the first company in our industry to go server-to-server with all of our integrations, and reap the benefits of like that speed and performance metrics. So again, we didn't just say like, all right, cool, we built this part, which was better than most, but looking towards what comes next, right? So it's not just a build it and let it sit. It's always thinking about what is coming next, because especially in this industry, it's going to change. You guys might be seeing like a bunch of supply chain issues right now, or a year and a half ago with COVID, right? There's going to be a lot of innovation coming in there. So there's a ton of people thinking about this. Some of them are not going to be doing it very well, or some of them are just going to be afraid of change and not thinking about it with its potential of what's coming next. And that's where like the growth is going to be coming, right? There'll be a few new products or new companies. Those will always be around, but for the most part, it's going to be innovating on what already exists. Don't stress about what you're doing right now. Right? Like, I was a broadcast journalism major from ASU, and I quickly decided like that wasn't what I wanted to do. And I basically, how everybody's complaining about the media right now, I was seeing that like being a broadcast journalism major, and I didn't like the way that was going. So I pivoted, started looking at different things. I watched a bunch of salespeople who are literally dummies, just make a lot of money because they show up, knock on a door, and they have a decent product. So think about what you're doing. You might hold on to aspects of it, but it doesn't mean that that's where you're going to be in 10, 20 years, right? All of this is like helping you, but like if you think like, no, I'm going to be an engineer forever. We've taken engineers and turned them into product guys, product leads. They don't code anything anymore. Or I just want to focus on marketing, right? Everybody can pivot and just be aware and don't be afraid of that.